Hello, guys, and welcome to the Mexican Soccer Show, an hour-long podcast dedicated to Mexican soccer, Mexican football, and everything that you can think of because it's the beautiful game called football. I'm your host, actually, tonight. I'm your host, Cari Torres, if you guys have known me, Fumex Nation, and with me, the ladies of Fumex Nation, as you know them, Amy and Adriana. Ladies, welcome.
Hello, happy to be here. So excited. I'm always in the background, so I'm happy to be here in the front. Every once in a while, I'll throw myself into the Mexican soccer show, but it's good to be here.
Nice. Adriana, how are you? Via Mexico City, how are you?
Hey, ladies, I'm good. Not as well as I'd like to be. Disappointing loss just a couple hours ago. We'll talk a lot about that. So yeah, I'm still trying to process it and I don't know, blame people and say what went wrong. But we'll get into that in just a minute.
Definitely. I think this being our ladies edition, because it's ladies now, we have to talk about La Selección Mexicana Femenil, and it's a rough way to start because we wish we could have started this episode talking about the win and everything great about it and a devastating loss, I have to say. 2-0 loss versus Panama. And, I mean, they really needed to win this game. It was just a do or die match because they were even on points and they were looking to go to the semifinal, and it just all seemed like a perfect stage, a perfect setup. We have so much to talk about this game. So anybody want to take over? What did you guys think about the game? What went wrong? Because I noticed that this formation that they used was, the lineup was the same lineup as the past game, just one variation, which was they took out Nayeli Rangel and they put in Carla Nieto, which I think was a good sub because I really like how she was pressing in the middle. But there was just a lot of things that went wrong. What do you guys think?
I think that's a perfect way to start it. Like, a lot of things went wrong, and I mean, we'll focus on the Panama match to start, but I think everything watching that game, it was like a snowball effect of all the other matches that they had played, right? The US, they let way too many goals go in. They didn't defend correctly. Of course, the US was going to be a more dominant team, but they didn't defend well, and they got 6-0 scored against. Then you had the game against Trinidad and Tobago where they were dominating completely and had the chance to score more goals, and they didn't. And that's how they ended up with the goal differential of -3 compared to Panama's of -2. So they had to win this game. They score 1 or 2 more goals against Trinidad and Tobago, and all they have to do is tie. So they had that added pressure of having to win this game, and then they go into this game, they completely dominate, and then they just don't score. They don't score, and then they let Panama, who wasn't even playing that well in the first half, score right into the second half, which forced them to have to score 2 goals. And it was just a series of bad events that ultimately led to them not getting eliminated, which is really sad on a lot of different aspects. But for me, it was like you're watching that game and you're like, oh, if they didn't let the US score 6 goals, if they had scored 1 more goal against Trinidad and Tobago, it was like all those little things that happened for them to get to that place where if they were frustrated in the first half because they couldn't make their goals, well, they didn't wake up in the second half because then Panama came and they scored the 2 goals. So
yeah, I think that was the most disappointing thing because I was also thinking about all that goal differential. I was like, yeah, if only the US had scored, 4 goals, and maybe we had scored at least 1, which was what happened in the friendlies in April. Mexico lost those games 4-1 and 6-2, so at least they scored that time. But despite the fact the goal differential, at least they would have needed to tie against Panama, which they didn't. And that was just so disappointing because we had the early goal in the second half, and just before the first half ended, Charlyn Corral missed a penalty shot that would have been a great pick-me-up for the national team just going into the halftime. So I was really disappointed because of that. I just kept thinking about what if something else had happened in the U.S. game, because I really do think that half of being eliminated was because of the U.S. game. I just think that the lineup was just a way to say that they were really afraid, not only respect the U.S., but they were actually afraid. I saw many players being nervous. You just didn't see the level that that they can give. So then coming into this Panama game, which, by the way, kudos to Panama. I know they don't have a really tough big league. They don't even have a lot of female competitions. But still, the way that they played Mexico, and they just stood there and were patient. They were holding back all the time because Mexico created so many opportunities in the second half, and Panama was just really cold and chill and trying to make their game, and they eventually did. But it was really disappointing to see this loss, to see the loss against the U.S. for such a big goal differential. And now we'll just see so many players miss the opportunity of going to one more World Cup. And it just makes you think how many players won't be able to make it to the next World Cup because they'll be older. You'll have the U20 current team fighting for that position in 4 years. And it's just this generation that might be like kind of lost for the opportunity to playing in France 2019.
I think that one of the parts of the match that really disappointed, aside the fact that they missed the PK, was that it was Charlene Corral that missed the PK. You know, this player that everybody holds such high self-esteem, this player that, you know, she got a brace against Trinidad and Tobago. You didn't really see her have the opportunities against the U.S. because of how dominant the U.S. was. And then you kind of saw her get that confidence back against Trinidad and Tobago. And then, you know, for her to miss the PK, for me, it like crushed me, you know, because I was like, you know, not only did she miss the PK, which could have completely changed the way the second half goes, right?
Definitely.
She, I mean, credit to the goalkeeper Bailey for blocking it, first of all, right? But she misses, and you kind of just are like, at least for me, I was just like I was disappointed. I was like, that, you know, that's not the way it's supposed to go. You have your key striker that you always expect to score the goals, and she doesn't when it matters the most. You know, that's discouraging. That's troubling. And then on a larger scale, they end up losing the match 2-0. And, you know, I think about that too. Like now Charlene Corral, this player we've been so excited about for the last year and a half, last couple of months, you know, all the recognition and that she's been getting. Now she's not going to be able to perform on the most significant international stage. You know, she's 27 years old. It's like Adriana was saying, is she going to be there in 4 years? You know, is she going to have that chance? And that was one of the more somber points for me during the match, you know, that it's like a player like that, you know, a player like Monica Ocampo, are they going to have that another opportunity for this? What's the likelihood that they will?
Yeah, and I think we definitely could all agree that first half, it was a very attacking half for Mexico. They had so many plays, and some of them were unlucky. Some of them, they just could not concrete from the third, from attacking midfield up. It was just they could not. And I feel like sometimes either Katie Johnson was alone in the attack, and the wingers, like, they did what they could. But if you can't concrete and net in, then, you know, what's going to happen there? And also, I mean, yeah, we got to give credit to Bailey, 17-year-old goalkeeper. She did have some influence on that. The penalty to me was not a good penalty. It was, you could tell where she was going to kick it. It didn't have force, and she blocked it. And I think I agree with you, Amy. It was kind of like the hope that we had that at least it can go to halftime. Okay, we're 1-up, you know, we got to keep this. I definitely think that definitely changed the whole aspect of the game. I mean, they were playing really good first half. I had hope. I was like, you know what, we could do this, we could win. To me, Panama, they didn't play really well. They sat back a lot, like Adriana was saying. They were very defensive. They're just waiting for Mexico to make a mistake so they can take advantage. And I mean, the goals, they were just very frustrating because they were very imprecise little mistakes that defensively they shouldn't have been. And they did happen. And, you know, Mexico had 25 shots, 7 on target this game compared to versus US. They only had 3 shots and 1 on target. I mean, there's a drastic difference between how they play versus US and how they play versus Trinidad. And, you know, during this game, it was just frustrating because we know what these girls can do. My emotions are going to come out. It's just, we know how good these girls, you know, have been. And I think a lot of the attention, like, after the game was like, oh, well, isn't this why the Liga MX Femenil was created? And, you know, this is why it's like a fracaso and all this. And I think to that, I'm going to throw it to you guys. Like, you guys think it's a fail because they invested so much money into creating this league, and it's been having success, but I think it takes process. I think it's a process that it's building up. We're not just going to get results from one year to the other. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think probably Meg is to blame, but still, I just think this is the generation that kind of missed out on the league, because these are players that probably half of them are Mexican American, which for some weird reason the league won't allow anyone that has double nationality, that has a dual nationality. So we've actually haven't been able to ask someone from the Liga MX why the hell they did that, because these are people that actually represent the country, and that same country isn't allowing them to play in the league, which is just, I don't know, ridiculous. So then you have all these players, and then you also have the age limit. You can't have more than 4 players that are over the age of 24 in the league. So yeah, many of the teams have avoided using those positions because they have players that will be eventually that old next season, or maybe a bit more after that. So they want to keep those positions open. And then let's just face it, many of these players are making a bit more money than they would probably here in the Liga MX, where the salary is really, really poor. So I really think that the most frustrating thing is that despite the league, this is the generation that just won't take advantage of it. I mean, you have probably about 7 players from the league, but most of them were actually national team players before the league was even created. So these are players that didn't benefit at all from the league. Maybe some of them are playing right now in the league. You have, I don't know, Jackie Ovalle, who was actually one of the players from the U20 squad that played the World Cup, and she made it into the senior squad just a couple of weeks later. You have Ceci Santiago, who had to play in the U.S. and then go to Europe to play for a couple of years before being able to come back to Mexico, because she was one of those rare national team players that doesn't have dual nationality and that was seeked by America. So, yeah, I mean, that was one of the little clubs that could actually make an economic difference for a player to say, oh, yeah, I'll just come back from Europe and play for the Liga MX. So I think actually to see some results from the Liga MX, we should start looking from the U20 squad and maybe down to the U17 squad, which, by the way, will play the World Cup in Uruguay in November. So I really don't think that the league could make such a difference in this generation. I think these are the players that had to find a career for themselves despite not having a domestic league. And ironically enough, now they can't even play in the league despite being like a really professional, well-formed league. So I really do think that part of the failure from this process was probably coming in from the Leo Cuellar process a couple of years ago. Let's just remember, Leonardo Cuellar was the only coach in the Mexican national team at the senior level. I mean, he was here for years. And then after the failure of not qualifying for the Rio 2016 Olympics, he just steps down after some pressure also from some of the players because they didn't agree on what he was doing. They said there was no project. And then I was just remembering that Roberto Medina, who was in the U20 squad, kind of took over. There wasn't ever a really formal announcement saying, hey, this is our new senior team coach. It was just like he just took over. Like there was nothing formal about that. And he was actually like part of the same structure, the same kind of soccer school kind of thing going on with Cuellar. So maybe that was a mistake. If you saw that Leo Cuellar couldn't make this same team, because it's the same generation of players qualified to 2016 Olympics, and then you named the guy that was in the U20 team following the same system to keep on in his footsteps for the qualifiers, maybe that was a mistake. Maybe we should have looked for someone else outside of the Mexican system, someone that could actually have a project for the women's teams and just make a difference, because we know how talented these players are. We know that they could have made it easily into the World Cup. So that's what's most frustrating about it, that you see all these things that they just didn't happen and they could have.
Yeah, I think I love me some social media investigation sometimes, and there was she's a former player, right? Veronica Perez. I think somebody wrote something like that on Twitter after the game, like, hey, remember after, Cuellar left and they didn't do anything to advance the women's league? Like, does anybody else remember that? And she retweeted and then replied, like, yeah, I remember that. So there's definitely some animosity from former players. I mean, I can't imagine what the current players are going to say, when they start talking after what happened. So there's definitely, like Adriana was saying, there's definitely going to be some frustration from those players of the lack of development, because on the one hand, you had a good set of players that are playing abroad, like the men's side, you have strong players that are playing abroad. You do have some in the domestic leagues, you have some here in the US in the NWSL, so you had a good mixture of the players, but they had to go elsewhere to try to find, to try to develop their game, to try to do better and stuff. And of course, I'm sure that frustrates them. I'm sure that wasn't great. It's like Adriana said the last time that we all talked, it's a very rare case where the league was trying to bring in players from the national team to start building up their league, as opposed to the other way around. And, that's a huge reflection of the issues that are surrounding the women's game.
So I'm still very emotional.
I mean, it's
hard
definitely
to digest.
It's definitely frustrating because before we started recording, Gadi and I were talking, right? And I'm the first, I'm the first to admit, I said this last time too. My knowledge of the women's game, is very small compared to all the years that I was watching the men's game, right? It's very, very small, but I'm dedicated to continuing to learn about it, even despite the fact that they're eliminated, right? Despite that fact, I'm going to keep gaining that knowledge and learning more about them and the players and how they develop throughout the years and stuff. But there's a lot of people like me or that have barely started paying attention because of social media, because of the ways that we've been giving attention to it, because of the formation of the Liga MX Femenil and stuff, right? And so, yeah, it's like Tom said earlier, I even wrote about, they do have to let their work speak for themselves sometimes in order to get that recognition. And in a very somber way, by them not qualifying, it creates that, not necessarily a generic soccer fan, more like a generic women's soccer fan, right? It's taking those people and who might not want to pay attention or just want to see a team that's qualified for the World Cup, that's in the World Cup because they're representing their team's jersey, being like, oh, they didn't qualify. Oh, okay. Not to say that that's right at all. I don't agree with that at all, but it's that somber reality, It's kind of appropriate, I guess, in a way, because this is the anniversary of last year when the U.S. men's didn't qualify, and they kind of felt the same way, right? Oh, how are we going to get, people to be attracted to soccer? I kind of felt that same way after the match. I was like, how, and it also did upset me that there were people that were also like, oh, well, who cares? I think it was like Tom was tweeting stuff out. There was a few other people that were tweeting stuff out, and yeah, of course. There's some of those comments that are like, well, who cares? It's just the women's game, right? And it's like,
that's what triggers me. That's what triggers me, because obviously we would pay attention to all the men's soccer. I mean, I grew up watching it, and I think I can relate to you, Amy. I, haven't been following the women's as I should, but from here on out, it's just we're gonna keep an eye on it, because I think we really have to push. We really have to support, because if there's no support, then what can we expect? And like you and me, Amy, we're talking about comments on Twitter that they're just irrelevant. They're just uncalled for. Instead of, obviously we accept Mexico had the authority to win tonight. Yes, we accept it. Did they fail? Yes, they did. And sadly, because it was just devastating, because it was their opportunity. Like Adriana said, this group of girls, they definitely deserved it. There's so much talent just being wasted, not qualifying for the World Cup. But there just shouldn't be those comments where it's just like, oh, like Amy said, oh, well, it's just women's, like, just women's soccer. Like, what can we expect? And it shouldn't be like that. We shouldn't hold it to that. And just comments, like, I think I was reading a comment that really bothered me that was like, oh, it's a huge fail for La Selección Mexicana Femenil. Thinking back to when you guys won, you wanted all the portadas about you guys, now accept, being criticized. And it's so uncalled for. So uncalled for, because I think we take criticism more than the men do sometimes. And I was watching I think an interview with Monica Ocampo. They were asking her like, hey, like, what did you think about the game? Like, tell me. And she was accepting, you know what? Yeah, like, we feel really devastated. We could have, accepting being criticized, because at the end of the day, that's the only way to learn and move on.
Yeah, I think that's what burns us the most is probably not only the fact of the failure of not qualifying, but knowing that people will discredit now probably everything. They'll be like, oh, see, we told you the league doesn't work and these players don't deserve our attention. And why are we even focusing on this? So I think that's probably what burns me the most, is probably the fact that people are going to be arguing that uncontrollably and unnecessarily, because that's not the point. I mean, if you look into this, you'll know that the league has probably nothing to do with this squad. You can see all the mistakes that were made. We were just talking about them a while ago. And you can see that there is talent. I mean, if you actually looked at the games, you could see that Katie Johnson is an amazing striker. You could see that Charlene Corral, where her Pichichi comes from the Liga Española. You can see she's a defender, and she was probably almost a striker today. So there is talent, and that's what's probably most frustrating, is that now we have to start all over again. Kind of, you have to remind people that, hey, okay, this happened, but that doesn't mean they're poor players. It doesn't mean that they didn't deserve actually to make it through. But still, it's going to be another process of getting people into the women's soccer again, trying to support the U17 team in a month or so when they go to Uruguay to play for the World Cup. trying to make them understand that this is a process. We know that what we were saying, that this generation didn't have the benefit of playing in a domestic league. They just had sometimes when they were called on for the Mexican national team years ago, it was that was the first time they could actually practice together. That was the first time that they had some professional help to improve their game. These were players that sometimes were playing at amateur levels, and when they were called up to the national team. And now that national team on a different level is what's making the league, like what's supporting the league. It's not the other way around. Many countries have leagues that all these players go and then go to the national team. Here it was backwards. So that's something that we have to improve on. And it's not going to come like from one month to the other. This is going to take years. So you need to make people patient about it. You have to make them appreciate what we have, and you have to make them recognize that despite today's failure, there is talent, and we have to support it and keep on rooting for all these players because they've been through so much. I mean, Charlyn Corral, like she's a Pichichi from La Liga Española. I mean, the only other person to do that was Hugo Sanchez, and she's complaining that she has no sponsors. You have to see all the flights that which is ridiculous. I mean, you have a leading goal scorer in Spain, and she can't even get a pair of cleats from any brand. Are you kidding me? It's ridiculous. And then you see all the other sacrifices that players have to make to be on the national team. Some of them have to go to school. We were talking about how 19 out of the 20 players have a university career or are studying at the moment. So there is lots of things behind this that we should actually applaud, despite today. Yes, it was a failure, but it doesn't mean that the entire women's Mexican soccer is a failure as well. So we just have to keep on supporting that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the performance on the field, right? In some ways, you know, I do think that for the U.S. game, you know, Katie Johnson should have started. I think her being up top would have significantly benefited the team. You obviously saw the benefits of her being with, you know, starting these last two games. But I do think that there's issues on the field that go beyond, you know, the direction of whoever's in charge. You know, a perfect example today, I thought they were really strong on the right hand side. You know, all of the first half, they just couldn't score their goals. Charlyn Corral missing the PK. That's not a matter of who's in charge or what. That's a matter of, like Gadi said, she didn't take a strong PK. You know that, yeah, and in those senses, that's on her. But another part of me, not to deflect the responsibility from the players, is like, you know, how did they feel? Did they really feel supported? Did they really feel like, you know, people were recognizing? I know there were like great people. Like I know there was like Pancho Villa's Army who was at the games and stuff. But you know, I can imagine that psychologically it doesn't feel good when, you know, they're probably not paying as much attention to you as they are to the men. Yeah, it's going to take time to develop and everything, but you know, it irked me when I see them post out a tweet that says, you know, here's the final score for the match. And then quickly, like I think I checked, it was like 3:58. They post the final score for the match. And then like what was it, like 3:58? And then like less than 10 minutes later, they're like, oh, by the way, the guys are playing. Like, you know, just like completely redirecting it. Or I'm just like, I get it. But at the same time, when Mexico lost against Brazil, you didn't go straight to like, here's other content. I understand that there's more content that needs to be shared, but you didn't do that. That's not what was done. There could have been some plan to be like, you know, we didn't make it, but thanks to the fans for showing up. Thanks for supporting us. We're going to start working hard. There's that redirection where even though it's not the intention, it looks like, okay, you just stopped caring. All right, cool. We're, you know, thanks for giving us a brief moment of attention.
Definitely. And I think, like you said, it's probably something psychological because, I mean, obviously the 6-0 loss, it's not easy to take, especially, I mean, imagine them like, oh my God, we lost 6-0. We have to bounce back. And they did bounce back, and they bounced back really good, you know, Charlyn with a brace. But going into this game, the pressure was on. And I think maybe they probably looked back and was just thinking that USA game really affected us. Now we need to step it up. And just the pressure already, you know, we need to win this game. It's now or never. Do we have the support? And I don't think they had the full support, but you know, we were strong, and I think they tried, but there was just so many mistakes that they were just really frustrating. Like, you know, on the attack and so close and crossbar, and you know, someone not getting there on time. Like, you know, like I said, I think Katie sometimes was like on the attack alone, and because I think Charlyn was playing kind of behind her. But like I agree with Amy, like on the wing with Kenty Robles, I mean, she was up and go. So I think they just missed out on the first half, really concreting those opportunities that they did not have as many second half. And getting that early goal, like early second half, I think that's what really like set the tone for the rest of the game. I mean,
yeah, and regarding what Amy was saying about the social media, curiously enough, the U17 team was playing at the exact same time as the senior squad. They were playing against England. They have this amazing tour in the US. They're going to play England, the US, and Colombia, which are great rivals, unlike the senior squad, which we'll talk about in a minute. And they were playing at the exact same time. There was no tweet even saying that they were playing today. And these are the guys, these are the girls that are going to the World Cup in a couple of weeks. So it's an amazing rival. I mean, I looked at them and I was like, oh my God, they made an effort to get really good rivals for preparing for the World Cup. But there was no tweet. There was nothing saying, oh, by the way, this other women's team was playing at the same time and this is what happened. I still don't know how they ended up. I have no idea. And they were, curiously enough, also playing in the US, I think in Florida, so pretty close. So yeah, sometimes you wish they could try a bit harder. I mean, I really do admire what they do with like the press department, sometimes the social media. They did this amazing YouTube video where they had the players playing like Plinko, where they put the disc and they had to do tell a joke or dance or draw something or tell a joke or like a tongue twister, stuff like that. That was an amazing way for fans to actually get to know the players. That was really cool. But I really would like to see a little more like for a little more social media to be not maybe as biased as sometimes it is with the men's side, which is like if they lost, they wouldn't be tweeting anything like until tomorrow or something. So and regarding the rivals, I saw an effort to improve the rivals probably this year. I can't really remember last year. Let's remember Roberto Medina came in January of 2017, like after the Olympics qualifier failure. And this year they played the US in April twice, which was great preparation. I admire that one. That's a good one. Then they had the Central American Games, which they won a gold medal for. So yeah, it's also bittersweet because you know that this is the squad that won the gold medal and they played really well. And now you can't even make it to qualifiers, or at least to the next stage of the qualifiers. And then in September, they had this weird tour in Turkey where they played, I think it was Poland, Lithuania, and Letonia. And I was like, really, guys? I mean, we went to play against the US, there's no better rival. And then you went to play to Turkey with these squads where they don't even have like a really like an A squad level. So I'm trying to understand. Yeah, you made the effort of playing the world champions, which is amazing. And you sent them to France as well. They played against PSG and the French national team, which was also good. But then you send them to Turkey, where you're playing squads that don't really have that same level. So I'm kind of I don't know. It's kind of confusing to understand what they were seeking when they did such a good job with some of the rivals, and then such a poor one with the other one. It's sending them to Turkey. I mean, I would have killed to see the national team play against Liga MX teams. Maybe not at the Azteca Stadium, because that would be maybe like too unreal, but maybe playing at the Cruz Azul Stadium, which is being used for everything, despite the fact that Cruz Azul doesn't play there anymore.
Yeah.
But making them, I mean, this is a team that's never played in Mexico. I mean, I can't remember the last time the women's national team actually played in Mexico. It just doesn't happen. And you're still trying to get fans to be psyched about them, to support them, but you don't bring them close to them. So it's Turkey. Understand? I mean, you'd rather send them to Turkey? Are you serious? I mean, just think of the economic investment to bring all those 23 players all the way to Turkey, and you didn't want them to play in Mexico. I mean, they could have gone to the Chivas Stadium, they could have gone to Pachuca, they could have gone to Monterrey, and you didn't do that. So it's kind of frustrating to see some good effort, and that's kind of ruined the other way around.
Yeah, and I can imagine like, going off of the the rules that the Liga MX Femenil has, like all these different approaches that you're having only strains that relationship even more. Like especially because I mean, it would be revolution. It's a revolutionary thing happening with the Mexican men's side, but you have a large amount of the women's who are like dual nationals, right? Who are Mexican Americans and stuff, and you're creating this this detachment for them, and you're creating this detachment for them from their country, from their fans, from their native fans, if you will, and that's not helping. So. What's done is done. They've unfortunately been eliminated, and all we can differently from the US from a year ago, but maybe a year from now we will see positive change. They'll take into consideration that the women are happy with the league. Maybe they'll get rid of that rule that doesn't let certain players play on it. Maybe they'll be maybe there'll actually be changes. Maybe they'll see this and be like, especially with all the with all the social media engagement that was on it, maybe they'll be like, you know what, people are actually getting invested in this. People are excited about this. How can we make it better? Because there were former players that were upset all over social media after this. I can imagine that current players are not going to be too happy with what's going on. So, I mean,
yeah,
it sucks.
I remember actually with I remember with the men's national team, the same thing you were saying before the Brazil World Cup. Some of us, I have to admit, we were kind of rooting for the team to be eliminated. It's really sad to think that way, and it's really frustrating. But there was this inner voice, I'm guessing, in many fans saying, we just might need to get eliminated for people to make some change in Mexican soccer. It just needs to be that drastic. It doesn't have to be just barely qualifying and then playing New Zealand and then getting that ticket to Brazil. Sometimes you just need to miss the World Cup for things to get done. And sadly enough, it for the women's team, it just seems like they didn't even try hard enough the first time. So having to make some changes when you think that they didn't do the things right the first time, it's even more frustrating. But maybe that's what needs to happen. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe Roberto Medina should step down. I mean, he clearly followed in Cuellar's footsteps. He couldn't do the only major tournament, and we know that players have talent. So is it time for Roberto Medina to go?
I mean, that's the logical step, isn't it? If you don't make it to a World Cup, it's like you're
not working.
Yeah, what you're doing isn't working. We need to have a new idea. We need to invest in a new idea of some sort. You know, I think that, like I said, sometimes it's what happens on the field is the performance of what's going on in the field. But I think not starting Katie Johnson against the U.S. Is a big mistake. Was a huge mistake, and that mistake reflected in the game. Who knows? Maybe it would have been just the same. But you don't know. But you definitely saw her impact when she started the last two games, and it makes you wonder what could have happened if she had started that game. And yeah, at the end of the day, you don't do your job, you don't get to keep your job, and his job was to get them to the World Cup. So
yeah, I guess something.
The problem here is,
go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead. Okay, well, I was just saying, last time when Cuellar left, okay, you had the U20 team, the U20 coach step up, which was Roberto Medina. If he goes away, guess who's the U20 coach right now? It's Christopher Cuellar, son of Leonardo Cuellar. So it's just more of the same. We're falling
back to the same thing.
I know, like we try so much, and we say it so many times, saying we shouldn't follow in the men's mistakes, because this happens all the time in the men's teams, like Liga MX teams and national teams. This just happened. This is really common, like Liga MX being Liga MX, I say.
Hey, this is a complete this is a complete digression, but do they have any relation to Renee Cuellar, the player? I
think she's a niece, but I'm not 100% sure.
It's all connected somehow, Amy. It's all connected.
Because she was tweeting out earlier today too after the match. First, she put up those laughing emojis, and I was like, "Ooh, you know what she's doing." And then she elaborated more. She was like, "I support my teammates. I support what they're doing. I don't support the staff's decisions." And then she went on even farther to say that she thinks that her having a child and taking some time to take care of her child was one of the reasons she didn't get to go to these games. So I was just thinking about that because Cuellar kept popping up. So.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure, actually. It is a big coincidence, though. But despite that, the thing is that Clarissa Robles was called up. She's a mom, and she was one of the players that won the gold medal in the Central American Games. So if that's the issue, it might not be entirely true, because you had another mom called up. So you have to look into it. I mean, there was also, you were saying, I think Perez is also looking at it. I mean, how many things probably we don't get to know. I mean, it's just stuff that happens. Like when Leonardo Cuellar was, I mean, Charlene Corral threatened not to be back to the national team because she didn't agree with the way that the national team was being directed by Leonardo Cuellar. They made him step down. So how many other things probably happened that we have no idea about, especially being the women's team, where it's easier to get away with stuff because the press isn't always there, because only a couple of reporters, like a handful of reporters, will go to the press conferences, who actually know the players and get to know like the coach and how things are handled. I mean, how many people have actually stopped to think, okay, we'll take away Medina. Oh, yeah, and who's coming in? I mean, I would love to see a foreign coach come in with a really, really serious project, who takes the league seriously, who have some contact with all these players that are growing up, which are U17 players, U20 players, and start looking into that. But it's just this vicious cycle sometimes in the federation where you just want to keep people that you know you can control, people you think you can tell things, people that can sometimes, I don't know, kind of bend the rules because you have some marketing requirements, or because I don't know, you just need to call up some players, which happens in the men's side. We always talk about this, how much pressure sometimes some companies may have because you need Chicharito to be called up because he's the image of, I don't know, a brand or something. So if that happens in the men's squad, I can't even imagine what happens in the women's side as well, and we just don't know about it. But yeah, I just hope that I do think this was proof that Roberto Medina was way in over his head for taking control of the team. As I was telling you earlier, there wasn't even an official announcement when he took the team. So I do think they have to take this time and look into another coach. You have Maribel Dominguez coming in at the U15 team.
And why not like a women's coach? Does that not like come into the question? Like, if we're talking about changes, I mean, why not?
It should be. Yep. The U17 team has Monica Vergara, and the U15 team, which is amazing. We have a U15 team, a women's team, has Maribel Dominguez, which we all know is, I don't know, like you have Charlene Corral and Maribel Dominguez like as top like female scorer in Mexico in history. So I just don't know if maybe they're as prepared as we'd like them to be to take on the senior squad. I really don't know. But you could definitely consider them, or try to look into, I don't know, maybe the league. You have Andrea Rodebo, who has tons of experience in Xolos. You could talk to her. I'm sure she'd have all the experience necessary to take on the team. Some people were saying Eva Espejo, which is the Pachuca coach. She's quite young. I think she's like 32 years old, so maybe not as young. It's not that the age has something to do with it, but she would be dealing with players that are just as old. So maybe that's not the ideal scenario. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you could find someone, I mean, on the international level, who's willing to take on a project and say, hey, we now have a league. We have amazing players that are playing in Europe, in the United States. I'm pretty sure there's something to be done. It's just a matter of fact that the federation actually wants to have this like entire revolution in women's soccer.
Definitely. And I think it all just goes back to them FMF. It all just goes back to the structure of it. So I think moving on, I think we've said a couple things that we can move on with and that needs to happen. So we have the Liga MX Femenil. Okay, that's still going to be in progress. Let's get a new coach. What about, we're looking at, how about tournaments? Because we can't just depend on, you know, the Liga MX Femenil and them playing. I think we need more tournament. I don't know what you guys think. Like, what do you guys think we should be done? Like, how do we move forward from this? What needs to happen? I think
it's just a matter. I think it's just a matter of like Adriana was saying, you know, taking it seriously, really investing in the development, but not investing as ridiculous as sending them to Turkey. You know, investing in a way that's beneficial for everybody. I mean, yeah, it could be from an economic standpoint, but it could also be, you know, just from a tactical standpoint. How can we make these players better, or in a better sense, how can we get the players we know do well and have them be closer to home in a sense? Like, I mean, same regardless of gender, you need to have those players abroad, right? You need to have those players that are playing at top levels, but you also need to develop, you know, your league, and you need to develop players that are in your country in that league to better the team overall in the long term. So I think it's a matter of taking it more seriously. I think them creating the league, like we've always said before, it is a step in the right direction. And of course, like Adriana always says, my favorite thing, that, you know, you have to prove that it's not a novelty. We have to prove that they're taking it seriously and they want to move forward. So I think that's just it. I think it's just making sure that they use this as a lesson. Would it have been better if they had qualified? I think so, you know, but they didn't. So now you have to go from here. You know,
let me
sink
ask
or swim. You gotta swim.
Would it have been different if we, like right now, not qualifying, fail all this attention, or qualifying and then failing then? Like, which one would be worse, I guess?
You know, that actually did cross my mind. I was like, what if we qualify and then we have a bad World Cup? I think ultimately it would still have some of the same effects, right? It would still be a sense of, okay, we got to the World Cup. oh, now we've embarrassed ourselves, not embarrassed, but oh, now we've, now we've not done well on the international stage where everybody's watching us. How are we going to fix this? I feel like it might have had the same, not exactly the same ramifications, but I feel like there still would have been a significant impact, probably even more so because of all the attention that they were getting. And like, a lot of people were saying they were expecting the US and Mexico to be the top two teams without question. Like there wasn't
because
even
that's
a doubt.
what basically CONCACAF is made for, those two teams to always excel and move on. So I think going back to what Adriana said, so is this a good thing that we failed now so we can fix the problem, I guess? I mean, it all just goes back and forth between the FMF and how things are structured, and when we fail this happens, or when we do this, it's all connects somehow, and it's just frustrating that sometimes we don't have the right answer because we always end up going back to the same cycles, and there's no actual real legit change. Just as the men's, just as the women's, it's all in all the same thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think regarding what would have been worse, seeing as though we've never made it past the group stage, it would have been like more of the same. So sadly enough, maybe you do need something as drastic as not actually even making it to that group stage in the World Cup to make some difference. Sadly, I really hate that from Mexican soccer. It's kind of Mexican cultural thing as well. You kind of have something disastrous go on, and then that's when you react and do something even better. So that's just us.
It reminds me of a Mexican saying, but
sounds like me in high school, but yeah.
Yeah, but I still would have liked them to make it at least to the World Cup, because I think these are players that probably the next 4 years it's going to be even harder for people to actually know them. I mean, I know people know Ceci Santiago, they know Charlene Corral, I think they know Kenty Robles, but they might not know Bianca Sierra and Stephanie Mayor. They know them as the players that are from Iceland or something like that, but they don't know them physically. They don't know who Ariana Romero is. I think that now they're starting to know Cristina Ferral because she came back to play to Mexico after being in France. So that's kind of the frustrating part, because you have all these really good players, and it's going to be even harder for people to look around. Now they're going to be like, oh, was she one of the ones that didn't get to the World Cup? And that just happens. I mean, that's just like Mexican culture again. So I really regret the fact that they won't have this opportunity to make a name for themselves, like the ones that we don't know as much. I mean, I think now people know Katie Johnson. She played pretty well, as you guys were saying. I really regret the fact that she didn't play as a starter for the U.S. Against the U.S. But yeah, it's still kind of frustrating not to actually see them in a World Cup, have all this frenzy, like. People look around France 2019, get to know some of the other squads as well. Look around and see what women's soccer is around the world. It's just so much more difficult for people to look at women's soccer in general when your team isn't playing there at that too.
No, yeah. I mean, I don't think Charlene's legacy is in jeopardy necessarily. It was just one of those things where, like Adriana said, like for me, one of the things that really bothered me was, you think about Charlene Corral, you won't get to see her, in France next year. Almost to the point where, like, a part of me was like, there might be somebody out there that's like, oh, is she the one that missed the PK against Panama or something? It's like I don't think her legacy is in danger because she's done such fantastic work, throughout her career. But it was just one of those moments where it's like, it's so much easier to not easier, but it's like it's like taking a step back. Like it'll definitely be this little blip in her legacy that maybe for any player, but especially for women's soccer and her as a female player might have more damages to it. Hey, there's a lot of you guys watching us, by the way. Like thanks.
Yeah. Are you all just as sad as we are?
No, there's so.
I want to hear our emotional side of it.
Right now. I'm reading Cesar's comment on the chat. He says, "I wonder what kind of impact this will have on Liga MX Femenil. Negative, positive, maybe inspires more investment. I hope it forces some investment. I hope it inspires investment. But if it forces it, I'm just as okay with it. Maybe inspires league to allow Mexican Americans. I know that the age restriction, they're changing it year by year. It was at first a U23 rule. You could only have 4 players over 23. Now it's over 24 because obviously, like after a year, they were like, oh my God, we're gonna have so many players leave the league because we hired so many of them, which were actually like 22, 23-ish. So they kind of realized that, and they're like, oh, okay, now it's going to be 24, because otherwise we would have like half the league gone after a year. Hopefully, regarding the Mexican Americans, I understand the fact that the league was created to create players. Like it was made to help the Mexican national team, despite many of the Mexican national team players making it into the league before. Despite that, I really do think that they'll consider at least Mexican Americans for this. I mean, technically, it's even illegal. If this is one of the things that the men's Liga MX had to discuss a while ago, because they were like, all these foreign players are gaining Mexican citizenship, and then we can't just avoid them from playing because they're Mexicans now. So then this was just like the opposite totally. It was like, okay, now nobody's going to play unless they were Mexican born, like born in Mexican territory. But still, I think it's quite disappointing. Maybe they could have like a rule saying that they could be foreigners or could be foreign born if they had certain minutes, I don't know, with the national team, which they obviously will. I mean, you have Katie Johnson. I think Bianca Sierra, I know, was born in the U.S. I don't know, Nancy Antonio doesn't have a problem. Maria Sanchez, who plays in Santa Clara, she could play here as well. Stuff like that. So I think it's just a matter of finding a way to not abuse the system like they did with the men, and then have all these foreign-born players come in, and then they affected the national team players. Just kind of finding the other way around, saying, okay, we're going to make all Mexican-born except for those who play for the national team and have, I don't know, they've played for 300 minutes this year, or they've been called up a couple of times like this year. Something like that, I think, might open the opportunity for a higher level as well in the league. So I guess that's something they could look into.
I agree, and I think from a fan engagement perspective, I think it would do great to have the Mexican Americans playing in the Liga MX Femenil. You know, to have those consumers, you know, like, you know, female soccer players who are Mexican American, see them playing in the Liga MX Femenil, and then, you know, in that sense, you kind of start attracting more people to want to go to the league. You get more people paying attention to the league. I think. Yeah, I think I hope so too, Adriana. I hope that they reflect and they use this more as an opportunity to swim rather than sink, and just learn to, you know, really invest, and hopefully things get better as time goes on.
There's another tweet here that's pretty cool. Thanks to Ivan Pineda. He says, here's a hot take, quick fix. Why don't these three talented ladies play for Mexico? And boom, problem solves. That would be awesome.
I could play midfield. Just give me a couple seconds. Like, I tore my ACL, so, but I totally be up for it. I don't know about you guys.
I don't know, man. I have trouble scoring in my adult leagues.
I have like a Miguel Ayun complex or something, because I'm right-footed, but I always played left back, which was kind of weird because nobody else wanted to play left back, so I ended up always playing left back. So I actually like it now. I can't play on the right side. I can only play on the left.
Todo es culpa del Ayun. Todo es culpa del Ayun.
Yeah, todo es culpa del Ayun. I was so frustrated when Osorio had him play on the right side, and I was like, oh my God, no, I'm serious. He can't play on the left side. You can have a right-footed player play on the left side. It's not too difficult.
That's so funny. Yeah. Oof, okay. Man, we talked a lot about, especially the women's. Is there anything else you guys need to get off your chest from the women's before moving on?
Out of your system.
This is like a I don't want to say utopian dream, but I was just thinking about it, and especially because, you know, like, the U.S. women's team is like dominating, like just killing it and stuff, right? No, I don't support them. I need to put an end to this madness. Do not support them.
Whoa.
Do not support them. But I want that. You know, I want there to be that much excitement for the women's Mexican national team in that same sense. Like, you know, you saw, I think it was they do double headers, right? For this tournament, they were doing double headers. So one team played first, and then they'd have the other team playing afterwards. Mm-hmm. So it was like the U.S. versus Panama last game, right? And then it was Mexico versus Trinidad and Tobago. And it was like during the U.S. women, you know, during the U.S. game, you just saw the stands filled up, and just, you know, everybody's out there to support. And then, of course, it dwindled a little bit when you saw the cameras, you know, when you saw the cameras shooting the Mexico game. And I was just like, you know, if it takes 5 years, it'll take 5 years. You know, however long it takes, I want that. I want people in the stands cheering them on and getting that excited for our women's team. Like I want that feeling to happen. I want them to, you know, feel excited and get energetic. I want that to happen. I want that to happen for the women's game. I think if like we keep saying, like we keep reiterating today, if they take it seriously, if they take this as a learning lesson and really reflect on how they can make it better, hopefully we'll get there. Hopefully we'll get to that point, and people will want to go and fill up stands for our women.
You know what I'm really envious about? When you follow the U.S. on Instagram or Twitter and such, you could actually hear all the young kids yelling the players' names, asking for an autograph, for a picture. I so want that for the Mexican national team. That's why it's so frustrating, because you see them and you're like, I know, like back to what we were saying, they know like 5 players, but they could know so many more. They could inspire all these young kids to go out and play, and don't worry about it. If you're playing in an all men's squad, you can still make it to the national team. You now have a league. You have so many more opportunities than these ladies had, and they still made it to the national team, and they're amazing at it. So I just looked at it and I was like, I really want that. I really want them to create this inspiration for young kids to say, it doesn't matter if you're born in a men's like predominant culture, because that's what Mexico still is. It's fighting against it, but still, if you could have that, like that sports figure, those posters when you were a kid and you were like, I want to be like this kid, I want to be like this player. If they could create that, I think that would be such a social, like a social change and a cultural change in Mexico as well. Because I remember when I was playing, when I was a kid, I mean, I had like blonder hair. So I was like, I wanted to be Luis Hernandez. And I don't want kids to be like Luis Hernandez. I don't want young girls to be like Luis Hernandez. I want them to be like, hey, I'm going to be Ceci Santiago and I'm the goalkeeper. And I want to be like Charlyn Corral. If they could actually do that, it would be such an amazing change for Mexican culture, for Mexican soccer as well. So hopefully, something will happen with the federation and they'll make these changes despite being drastic. I don't care if it takes 5 years as well. I mean, I just hope that it gets there eventually and sooner rather than later.
I love that you said that, because I used to play defender when I was little, so I wanted to be Rafa Marquez, and I had the number I had the number 4 on my jersey too. And it's true, right? That's even as a girl, I had short hair. My mom used to cut my hair, and it was like really short, so I kind of looked like a boy. But yeah, that was my same thing. You know, I was like, oh, I want to be Rafa Marquez. He's the best defender, and you know, I agree. You know, actually, hold on before I keep going, Kari, did you have that too? Who was your player? I want to know.
Ooh, I mean, I always wanted to be, well, I really like Cristiano Ronaldo. So I would just, you know, when I would play, I would do his whole stance. Like when he would take a free kick, like 2 to the side, 7 out front, open leg, pose, take a deep breath. It was just, you know, you took it all in. Maybe it wasn't a Mexican player, but it was a soccer player.
No, but yeah, I do. You know, and that's the feeling that I keep getting, you know, even if it's not my generation, or like me who played soccer and knew these female players, I want that for the next little Mexican American or Mexican girl that plays soccer, for her to be like, I want to be Charlene, you know, I want to be Cristina Murillo. I want to be a player that looks like me, that is me, that I have the potential of being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, players. I'm happy to see some players kind of take the opportunity to, I don't know, make a name for this. I mean, you know, Lucero Cuevas, besides being like the leading goal scorer in the first 2 tournaments with Liga MX, she has like the headband.
Yes.
So then fans now know her because she has the headband. So I'm like, yeah, if I see a little girl playing and she has a headband, I'm gonna cry. I'm so happy. You have Norma Palafox, who would dance every time she scored. So now, like, people started looking at that way. So hopefully more players will start looking into those kinds of things on social media and such, and also try to get people's attention that way, because I think that would be an amazing way to like get little kids to look over and say like, hey, I want my headband. I want to play like her. And that would be so amazing.
Oh, no. That was a good chat of who our Mexican idols were when we were younger and who we wanted to be and all that. Yeah. Okay, so we got at least that off our chest, ladies. Let's quickly move on. I think we spent a long time. There's just so much we needed to talk about. Let's just quickly move on to the men's, like Twitter did the men's. They do play tomorrow versus Costa Rica.
Hey, but we gave a lot of time. Okay, we didn't just quickly deflect less than 10 minutes after. Okay, we gave it time. We gave it a good amount of time. So it's I'm sorry. See, I promised myself.
No. Okay. Amy, do you need to go?
Yes. Yes,
okay, we're going to say goodbye to Amy. Thank you, Amy, for joining us in the women's chat. Devastating.
Volley women's soccer, everybody. It's not over yet. We still got a lot more content to cover. So thank you all for having me. I have to pick up my children now. So
thank you, Amy.
Bye.
Bye, Amy.
Okay, Adriana. So talking about Mexico versus Costa Rica friendly. I mean, what can we really expect from these friendlies? We know based off of what we've played, September friendlies, now October friendlies. I mean, friendlies are just friendlies. We don't have any permanent soccer manager right now for men's. So what can we expect, honestly?
Well, I think looking back at the September games, they're probably just going to give minutes to all these other players. I think somehow we've always recently criticized the Mexican national team for calling up players and being like really cheap with the call up, saying like, oh, he had a couple of good games and we'll call him up. Oh, he had a really good save last game, let's call him up. And that's what they were saying that happened with Jose Carlos Van Ranking from Chivas, for Raul Gudiño. They were like, oh, you had like a really good like couple games, and Raul Gudiño, you stopped a penalty shot from
America. You deserve to be called up.
So you deserve to be called up. So disregarding that, I like the fact that they'll give some minutes to some of the players, because hopefully when the new coach comes in, which by the way, we still don't know who it is. It's like a mystery. It's like, I don't know. This is like playing. Yeah, it's like playing like Guess Who. Like, oh, does he have a beard? No, take him down. Oh, is he blonde? No, it's gonna take him down. We're just playing that like for months and months.
Of how they're choosing, honestly. I haven't played that game in a while, but that's the best description of how they're choosing the Mexican coach.
I know it's just crazy because they said today in a press conference that they're closing in on who it's going to be, but they won't announce it until after the November friendlies, which will, by the way, be against Argentina twice, which we're all, I guess, psyched about because, I don't know, it's just Messi, and hopefully he will be called up for the November friendlies. I think we're all psyched about that, and we're not even sure if it's going to be true. But well, regarding this call up, I like the fact that they might give minutes to some of these players, disregarding the fact that they may have been really cheap call ups or not, so that the new coach has some possibility to see these players against better teams, not only the Liga MX teams, but seeing them play at the national level, seeing them play against Costa Rica, seeing them play against Chile, which will obviously take the games a lot more seriously as well, despite being friendlies. So I like that. I sometimes think that this. I hope that these 6 months we won't regret like coming into the World Cup and be like, if we only had more time, and then we'll be like, oh, do you remember 2018, how we had those 6 games and then we just call up people like not randomly, but it feels that way sometimes. And we always need more time. So I really just hope that this is more of an investment with the call-ups, and not necessarily just like not wasting time, but saying that we could have done something better with these games. So I'm hoping to see a really new Mexican team like we did against Uruguay in September. I really regret not seeing Diego Lainez, who will miss these games because of an injury caused by one of his teammates, which is just ridiculous.
Bizarre.
So yeah, lots of experiments. There's nothing to lose, but still, I hope that they take it seriously and that they know that hopefully this will be a chance to win a place next semester, with which we hope it will be a new coach.
Definitely. And I think obviously we know that Costa Rica has a new coach, my favorite, Gustavo Matosa. So probably I love him. He did.
I actually think he was a really good choice for us. What happened?
I've been preaching that ever since he left Leon. Put him to national, and that did not happen. But I'm happy he got his international role, and he's doing. He's going to be doing good things. I support him. Referring to friendlies, like you said, obviously different call-ups have been pretty open, and I think for the most part, like we've talked about last podcast, we appreciate it because we give minutes to players that maybe not all coaches keep an eye on. Like they see them, but they're like, oh, they're probably not up to fit. Or you give those opportunities or those minutes to players that maybe let them live their dream a little bit, let them wear the jersey a little bit, because we know that maybe at the age or just realistically they're not going to make it to Qatar. But then you get those players that they haven't been called up, and I always stress about a couple of players, and I'm like, why aren't you called up? Alexis Vega, I know I'm so redundant, but he needs to get opportunity. But all in all, they're friendlies. We don't have to really, we want to see them play, but we don't want to focus on the scoreboard because obviously they're just friendlies. I think maybe we'll take them a little bit more seriously. Not even that, but like Argentina, because obviously we've have a history with Argentina, and I just think it's kind of bizarre we're playing them twice. And I'm really interested in seeing, like you said, if Argentina is going to call up Messi, Agüero, Di Maria, because then we have to call up our prime, because we can't look bad, especially playing in Argentina. We can't be looking like that, which will be
probably
which
is something we should applaud, because they haven't confirmed this, but apparently there's lots of reports that we will play outside of the U.S. and Mexico, which is just something so rare for the Mexican national team. I mean, we've slowly started exploring other markets and started playing some friendlies in Europe prior to the World Cup and such. But the fact that they actually consider playing somewhere else, I just think is a huge step for the men's national team, because you need to get away from that comfort of playing where you know that you're going to have full support in the stadium.
Exactly.
You need to be mentally prepared for people to just start booing you the entire game, to start yelling your names, to be angry at you. I just think that's something that we've missed out so much regarding other processes prior to the World Cup. So I'm really happy for them to consider playing anywhere else. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's Chile, Bolivia, Argentina, Brazil.
Listen to the Turkey, Adriana. Might as well.
Yeah, exactly. Just take them to Turkey. I'm pretty sure the Turkish fans will be psyched. I mean, really.
I mean, how they received Diego Reyes, they were all in all. So I can just expect La Selección, just, how receiving them, super stoked. But yeah, November friendlies versus Argentina twice. I mean, other than that, we're still in search for Italy's new coach. And like you commented on that, apparently there is someone, but we still have yet to see who it is. And we're just going to quickly touch, because we're running out of time, about the combined league, because it's been such a hot topic between Mexico, US, Canada, and that will be formed after the 2026 World Cup. I don't like it. I think it's monetary reasons. I don't see the point to combining the whole league. I just don't like it. What do you think?
I'm sorry, I'm dying here with a cough.
oh no! Drink water. Yeah, I just think this league is just not. Why combine the three leagues? I think, when they did the bid, obviously, I didn't think that the way they separated how many games each country was going to get was fair. So just thinking of, if they combine this league, how it's going to work. How's the relegation going to? How's the promotion? I mean, honestly, it's just monetary reasons for me that they want to do this after. I just don't see the point. And a huge thing for me is, instead of maybe focusing on doing this whole big league collection, why not focus on getting us back to Copa Libertadores, where it does matter, where there is competition, where we can actually get something out of it, rather than combining with US and with Canada. Respectfully, no offense, but I just don't like the idea of it.
Yeah, sorry about the cough. I'm kind of
It's okay.
sick.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I survived. I think I know many people would like Mexico to have more competition with CONMEBOL, but the matter of the fact is that we belong to CONCACAF, whether we like it or not. So yeah, probably not the best competition with Canada and the US, with all due respect. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just this thing with FIFA where they're finding all these new tournaments, like the Liga de Naciones, and they're just trying to make more games more relevant, so they have like more in play. Like they'll be like, oh no, now you're playing for this tournament, now we're going to play this to qualify for the World Cup. But still, you have to start to think if it's really worth, if it's going to be like a high level tournament, because somehow it just seems that it's going to be like another like the early stages of World Cup qualifying, where it's just unfair.
Yeah.
So you want a really high level tournament. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I remember before the World Cup, we were thinking, hey, just why don't they combine CONCACAF and CONMEBOL somehow? It would be crazy because of the calendar, but that would actually benefit maybe the entire region. I don't know if it will benefit CONMEBOL entirely, maybe not like Brazil or Argentina, but I'm pretty sure it might benefit like some of the Central American countries, maybe Paraguay, Uruguay. I mean, maybe you could get that competition and kind of benefit it so it's fair for everyone involved. Whether if it's just CONCACAF, it just looks like another like the CONCACAF club tournament. It's just gonna be like the same thing. You know that Mexico's gonna make it through, and if they don't, well, it's a failure. But okay, well, nothing really like serious will go on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a lot of talks about it, but I think we won't know anything until the next couple of years, maybe. I don't think they're gonna finalize anything, but there's a lot of people on Twitter that agree, disagree, that I've seen on social media. To me, I think we both agree. I don't think it's the best choice, but we will have to see until then. Well, that's all we have. Do you have anything, Adriana?
Well, just Liga MX Femenil comes back on this weekend. This unlike the men's squad, which will the men's teams, which will be they'll be playing some friendlies in the U.S. for the FIFA dates. So yeah, it's just take the opportunity, look at some teams. Sadly, not all of them are transmitted on TV, or maybe some of them on the internet. But yeah, just take a chance, look at some of the teams. I really like it when fans say, if I'm a Chivas fan for the men, then I'm just going to be a Chivas fan for the women. Mm-hmm. Just give them a chance. Try to go to a game. Most of them are actually free, and you'll kind of get the idea of why it's different. It's special in its own way, and you'll see that there is really good talent that we should support, not make the same mistakes that we've made with other men's squads.
Definitely, I agree. So keep up with that. Don't forget the men's friendly versus Costa Rica tomorrow, Chile on Tuesday. And we'll have Liga MX back. So I just want to thank you, Adriana, for tuning in and talking about the femenil and everything that happened. Our emotions poured out all in one night. And I want to thank all you guys in the chat, everybody who watched. Thank you for joining me, Adriana, and Amy, a special podcast, ladies' night regarding the women's Mexican national team and everything else about football. Thank you guys for tuning in. So appreciate it. So this will be my takeoff. Thank you guys for watching, and tune in next week.
Thank you, guys.